This comment proves that he is built different. My name is Peyton Kleppy, and on today's episode of Steelers Digest, we'll be breaking down the latest Pittsburgh Steelers analysis and news regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we get into the latest reports regarding our quarterback situation, if you guys are not already currently subscribed to this channel, click that subscribe button down below. Only 9% of our current viewers are actually currently subscribed. So if you click that subscribe button, we will get you guys the latest Pittsburgh Steelers news. Let's get right into it. Like I said, the Pittsburgh Steelers have some news surrounding their first pick in the draft. Or not first pick, first quarterback pick in the draft, Will Howard. They picked him up in the 6th round of the draft. You know, this is a weird draft for quarterbacks. Obviously, Cam Ward did go number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. This was a pick that we all knew throughout the whole offseason was pretty much going to be a lock. But there was some weird reports that were eventually saying that Shedeur Sanders was rumored to go at the number 2 or number 3 pick, but obviously he dropped all the way to the 5th round, and the Cleveland Browns did select him there. But this also just delayed the process for quarterbacks like Will Howard coming out of Ohio State, and guys like Riley Leonard who coming out of Notre Dame, and then as well as Quentin Ewers, who went very late to the Miami Dolphins. And, you know, I hope it's a chip on his shoulder. I really like Quinn Ewers. He was a guy that I could see in the black and gold. Obviously, he's headed to Miami, and he's going to back up Tua. He will probably get some playing time. You know, Tua is a quarterback that tends to get hurt a lot. But, anyways, Will Howard is a guy that most Steelers fans do like. And, former legend Ben Roethlisberger has made his take on the Will Howard pick. Ben Roethlisberger did state that he does like the pick, and he doesn't think that he's going to be a day one starter, though. He says he does think it's going to be Mason unless Aaron Rodgers decides that he wants to come in, which, all signs are pointing that Aaron Rodgers will eventually come into Pittsburgh and sign with the team whenever he is done dealing with his offseason stuff. Obviously he did come out on Pat McAfee's show and confirm that he is dealing with some problems within his inner circle and that he is actually in a serious relationship. So congratulations to him, I guess. But I just want him to sign and play some football for our Pittsburgh Steelers. But, but Ben does also bring up a good point, and he says that my question is, what does this mean to the Aaron Rodgers watch? And he said he didn't know. And that is a good question because, Aaron Rodgers is a guy that has a very, very high ego of himself, and he really acts like he wants to always be in control, and he wants to be superior to everybody else, I guess, in most situations nowadays. I don't know when it really started, but, he's a guy that definitely likes to be in control, and obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers are willing to give him probably some control, but obviously this is not his football team. This is the Mike Tomlin, Arthur Smith, Terrell Austin, Art Rooney, Omar Khan team. We are a team. We're not a franchise that bows down to one player. Obviously, the New York Jets kind of bowed down to Aaron Rodgers last year, kind of let him run things. Obviously, their record was pretty terrible, and I hope that Pittsburgh Steelers do not give the reins to Aaron Rodgers and don't let him do what he did to the New York Jets. I think we're a much smarter organization, but the way we're waiting out on him this offseason is really bringing up the question on how much power they will give Aaron Rodgers. But anyways, back to the Will Howard situation. Ben Roethlisberger also did say that part of me is like, man, it would be probably good for Will if Rodgers came in because he could sit behind a guy that is a Hall of Famer and learn. Would Aaron be willing to help? I don't know. Would Mason help teach him? Because it is hard sometimes when you're the guy and there's a guy breathing down your neck, And that is true also. Mason Rudolph is coming into Pittsburgh trying to prove that he is still a starting capable quarterback in the NFL. Obviously, his last couple games in Pittsburgh, he played pretty well. He came in for relief of Kenny Pickett in the 2023 season, I believe, when Kenny Pickett went down against the Arizona Cardinals and just kind of rode the bench for the last couple games where Mason did come in and won out the regular season, beating the Seahawks, the Bengals, and the Ravens for the last 3 games of the season. But he obviously did fall to the Buffalo Bills, but he still played pretty well in that 4-game stretch. And obviously he did sign with the Tennessee Titans after that. Tennessee played pretty terrible last year. That's why they got the number 1 overall pick. But it really was not Mason's fault. That roster had a ton of holes on it. A ton of dumb decisions by the coaching staff. Two different quarterbacks in there. Obviously, Mason did split time with Will Levis, who really wasn't too great himself. But anyways, Mason does have something to prove as well. So would he be willing to teach Will Howard? We'll have to wait and see because that is a situation where Mason Rudolph is also fighting for a roster spot. So we would have to see if he would be willing to teach Will Howard in that sense. But, Ben Roethlisberger does bring up some good points talking about the Mason Rudolph situation, as well as Aaron Rodgers, whether or not he's going to come in and also whether or not he does want to help Will Howard and teach him, because obviously Aaron Rodgers is in the last year of his career. If he just wants to be about business and just play and not worry about teaching a young guy, he could take that path, or he could just come in and be like, hey, Will, I really like you as a player. Let me teach you everything I know. And that would be something I would really like to see Aaron Rodgers do. Obviously help a young guy build his career. And obviously we've had some tough situations in Pittsburgh regarding our quarterback position. But Will Howard is a guy that is well liked by fans. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's from kind of the PA area. I mean, he's more closer to Pennsylvania. Shout out Westchester. Anyways, he's a big dude. He's got a lot of potential. He's 6'4", 230, 240 at that quarterback position. In the past, we've kind of struggled getting guys that are that big compared to Big Ben. Kenny Pickett wasn't too big. Mitch Trubisky obviously wasn't too big. And Russell Wilson was 5'11", I think, on a good day. So getting a guy in the under center that is 6'4", like a Big Ben, built like a Josh Allen. It's always exciting to see, and it's always exciting for the future to see what the Pittsburgh Steelers will have for Will Howard. But, Will Howard's comeback story isn't quite the tale for us Steelers fans. He was a guy that did not start out at Ohio State. He definitely went through his hardships throughout his career. But, after the selection, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Will Howard did break down in tears after being drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you haven't seen this video, you can check it out online. It's a cool video. It does show you just the player point of view of getting drafted. Will Howard is a guy that he did slip to the 6th round, but like I said, he definitely had a tough time making it to his position where he's at. Like I said, he did not start at Ohio State. I believe he did play at Kent State beforehand and then transferred. So, Will Howard did go through his fair share of adversity. And, coming into Pittsburgh, it's just going to be more adversity for Will Howard. He is a guy that probably won't start day one. He's definitely going to have to fight to move up the roster and definitely just prove to his teammates that he's still a champion. He's got the heart of a champion, and he could lead our Pittsburgh Steelers team in the future as we look to find our number one quarterback, our franchise guy who can bring us to that number 7 Lombardi. And I think Will Howard's got a chance if he just learns to just become a sponge and learn as much as he can from hopefully Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, Arthur Smith, and the rest of the guys in Pittsburgh. So that is all I have for you guys tonight on Steelers Digest. Thank you so much. If you guys are not already currently subscribed, click that subscribe button down below. Thank you so much. Here we go, Steelers. Peace out, boys.